Hello everyone, and thank you for watching the Wasabi Aquarium channel. As you can see, we are starting this video in a completely different way than usual. This shadow you see that's climbing the stairs is me. Today, I'm about to do an in-depth on-site review of the nature aquariums that are entirely operated and produced by ADA, displayed at the Sumida Aquarium inside Tokyo Skytree, and I'll try to do an in-depth analysis of them to see the different kinds of technique that we can implement in our own aquariums. So once you climb these stairs, the first thing you'll see is this amazing 4-meter tank. What is your guys' first impression of this? The thing that especially struck me the most about this aquarium is its layout, more than the aquatic plants. Personally, I've seen this aquarium many times since the Sumida Aquarium opened 8 years ago, but I get the same awe every time I see it, and I think it's the simplicity and absolute care to the details. From the U-shaped layout with the plants on both sides, it's almost the perfect textbook layout. The balance between the two sides, the amount of space in the middle, you can look at this aquarium from all sides and it'll look perfect. The aquatic plants in this aquarium are mostly Microsorum and Anubias. But did you know that it's actually quite difficult to create an entire layout mostly from these two plants? It usually tends to oversimplify the aquarium a bit too much. Although there are some red plants in the back, when you look at it from afar, the aquarium is pretty much dark green. So since it's pretty much a monotonous layout, there's a huge risk of being too simple and customers could get tired of looking at it very easily. But ADA has done an excellent job at making this aquarium that brings back customers over and over again. First of all, the space in the middle, as well as the white sand on the bottom surface, which enlightens the overall heavy atmosphere caused by the dark green plants, and the vibrant contrast between the white sand and the dark green plants is almost artistic. For example, I think it would also look clean with green short grasses in the front bottom surface, but at the same time it'll bring down the overall atmosphere. Next, I would like to share some technique that are used in this aquarium that can also be applied to our own layouts. If you take a look at the bottom floor, the lining between the floor and the stones are done in a very high level way. The zigzag and the intentional randomness between the areas that are bold versus the ones that are done deeper, the attention to detail here is done very precisely. Usually for large aquariums like this 4-meter tank, people tend to not pay too much attention to the bottom floor when building their layout and can be left to be bland. But the floor for this aquarium has been carved out very carefully, paying maximum attention to the borderlines between the sand and the stones. This bottom floor actually brings the entire layout together and makes it one that can be enjoyed repetitively. Overall, you may not notice at first, but this large aquarium is considered a masterpiece because of its attention to the finest detail. I believe that just by fine-tuning the bottom floor of your own aquarium like this one can actually raise its quality by a lot. Of course, we can also see that the equipment used in this layout are pretty large in scale, especially the number of LED lights. You can also see from here that the thickness of the acrylic tank, it's pretty thick. It's always interesting to look at professional aquariums like this, so you should definitely take a visit. Next, moving on to this super wide 7-meter panoramic aquarium. Just like the previous aquarium, you can already see that the layout is once again perfect. Every aspect and detail is in place, and there's nothing negative to point out. Starting with the overall layout, This layout consists of 3 blocks of stones and aquatic plants. When you take a look at each block separately, you will also notice that each one is a perfect layout design by itself, with the plants and stones very well thought out. And the combination of these 3 layouts that are perfected to the smallest detail create an additional synergy that makes this entire layout design simple but complex when looked at from afar. It is the attention to the finest details that weaves this entire dynamic aspects together. When laying out the design of a large aquarium like this one, it is definitely important to make it dynamic and grand to a certain extent. But at the same time, paying attention to detail is just as important. So when you create your own layouts for your own aquarium, if a huge aquarium like this one is this detailed, smaller ones such as 60 centimeter or 30 centimeter aquariums should be even more perfected, with every corner of the tank as finely tuned as possible. If you look closely, you will also notice that the stones are laid out in different directions intentionally in order to create a lively atmosphere throughout the aquarium. The stones that are facing upwards create an intense impression, and the stones that are laid sideways represent the flow of the water, so each stone is placed in a certain way in a specific location for a specific reason, and no stone is placed without purpose, which I think is an amazing way to think about a layout. Laying out stones and rocks can sometimes lead to thinking too much, but I would personally say that trying new layouts over and over again is the best way to perfect stone layouts, as well as maybe visiting natural sceneries such as actual canyons or cliffs near the ocean and implement those inspirations into your layout. I would say that this is the authentic approach to nature aquariums. Next, let's move on to this 180 centimeter Overflow Aquarium. Same as the other aquariums, this is a pretty orthodox U-shaped layout with aquatic plants and other material placed on both sides. The material used here are mainly unzan stones, but they've also placed very complex pieces of wood to add depth to the layout. This also makes the overall scenery more natural and more complex, which is a technique that was used in all of the other aquariums that we discussed today. Also, regarding these unzan stones, there is actually a perfect amount of aquatic plants placed in between them. If there was an excess amount of plants, it would lessen the impression of the unzan stones, and too less would on the other hand bring out the dark color of the stones a bit too much and would darken the overall impression of the aquarium, so the balance between the plants and stones in this aquarium is actually perfected. Also, moving to the top surface, you will find some water leaves, which connect the above and underwater sceneries in a very natural, organic way. When trying to create both above and underwater sceneries at the same time, one often ends up outweighing the other and could also break the unity of the overall layout, but this aquarium connects both dimensions very well. Now, this is a side view of the aquarium, and you can see that the slope is built very steep. This is actually also another technique used to naturally connect the top and bottom areas of the aquarium. Since this is an overflow aquarium, the water is flowing out from the backside and you can't hear it in this video, but there's a constant pleasant sound of water flowing, which is not too loud, and it's a very soothing sound, especially when you hear it in display spaces like this one. Also, if you take a look at the sand over here, it's almost all soil. I'm assuming they use power sand below the soil, but the ground is lifted very securely so that the plants are solidly secured in place even on these steep surfaces. The white sand also seems to be solid and in good condition, so it is very thoroughly maintained, and the soil and sand must be very well secured at the beginning stages of building this layout. Also, the aquatic plants on the top surface are also extremely well maintained. In many cases, the aquatic plants that stick out from the top usually are very sensitive to humidity and are usually very vulnerable to various issues such as changing color very easily when they are lacking nutrients, as well as being an easy target for insects. With that in mind, the water leaves for this aquarium were very well maintained and trimmed very constantly to maintain their beauty. Water leaves grow at a much rapid pace than aquatic plants, so it was very easy to see that they were trimmed at a very consistent pace. On the other hand, one strong aspect to point out is the area of Australian dwarf hydrocotyle around the center, which played a pretty significant role in the overall layout. By having this green, spacious area, it adds depth and also lightens the overall atmosphere and helps transition your eyes to the aquatic plants in the left and at the top. Also, the fine lines between the sand and the stones is a strong aspect that makes this aquarium such a good layout. Just like the previous 4-meter aquarium, the attention to detail is perfected in this layout as well. Additionally, the thin, complex pieces of wood are intentionally placed facing downwards to add depth to the borderlines, and you can also enjoy seeing the fish swimming in between the extended twigs, and is very pleasant to watch from the bottom as well. So today, we introduced 3 different nature aquariums located in the Sumida Aquarium. There are more large aquariums that are actually displayed in this facility that I could not quite introduce in this video, so I will also upload a part 2 once the editing is completed, so please stay tuned to the Wasabi Aquarium channel. Of course, the aquariums displayed in facilities like the Sumida Aquarium are much different in terms of scale when compared to the aquariums at our homes, but there are quite a lot of technique and methods that can be implemented, so these are great to visit and take a look at, and they will definitely be helpful, especially in the starting phases of building out your aquarium. So I think it is great to take a look at professional aquariums like these ones made by ADA, almost as textbooks if you will. Please kindly subscribe to the Wasabi Aquarium channel if you found this video helpful. Also, please stay tuned to part 2 of this series and look forward to more aquariums displayed in the Sumida Aquarium. That is it for today's video. Thank you.